Right. We are back. Juliet, Alex, I'm so excited to get back on this industry deep dive. I think that's what we called the first one, but it doesn't matter. Like this is a ton of fun for us to do. We've been preparing for this for months. It's so good to see you guys, live virtually. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Any opening remarks from the crew here?
I'm just excited to get into it, man. It's amazing how much can happen. I mean, I think we did our last one in July or August, and
Hmm. Correct.
there's been a lot going on, and there's more to discuss than we can possibly touch on in this hour. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
likewise.
Alex, how
And
about you?
yeah, like I love the industry. I love the news. So, and I feel like what we're doing is different from what's out there. So hopefully the audience appreciates that. And thanks, of course, to you, Eric, for giving us the platform to present this.
Oh, trust me, it's my pleasure. And to give you guys, not you people, but the people who are listening, some insights on what we're going to be covering today. We are going to get into the earnings reports, right? There's some ones that recently came out, and Alex, we're going to kind of let you lead that conversation. That is very much your world. We're going to talk about specifically Peloton and what that means for the industry, their success and failures along the way. We'll get some opinions on that. We'll get into longevity as a category, specifically Blue Zones and Peter Attia's Outlive, which is making quite the rounds as far as conversations and many things about that book that we can divulge into. But first and foremost, let's get an update because Juliet, you were recently in Washington, D.C., right? And there's been, as we kind of alluded to before our conversation started recording, there's been, it seems like a lot of advocacy going on in Washington, D.C. for the fitness and wellness industry. So maybe you could just give us some insights. What happened there? What was the mission? What were the takeaways?
Sure. I'll start with the first thing. I was speaking on a congressional panel on women's performance, and this is a really interesting backstory and the reason why we were there in the first place. I think the audience will be interested to know. But the military in particular is spending a lot of money and attention on making the military more welcoming, and making it possible for women to have, successful and long careers in the military. Unfortunately, the reason they're doing that is that you may have heard this piece of data floating around the news sphere, but 70% of 18 to 22-year-old boys no longer physically qualify to join the military. And that is for a variety of reasons, all of which are relevant to this podcast, of course. Health, general metabolic challenges, obesity, the opioid epidemic, other drugs, prison. But there's a variety of reasons why boys in that age category, generally speaking, aren't doing well. And as the mom of two girls, of course, I kind of want a fist bump in the air because who is doing well is girls. Girls are crushing boys by all metrics, especially in education. Graduation rates, test scores, college admissions, graduate school admissions, graduations. I mean, pretty much any metric we're looking at in terms of education in particular, women are by far outpacing men. But at the same time, of course, that's bad for all of us, and bad for society. And so maybe the underlying reason for this congressional panel is a bit depressing. But we were there to try to discuss the fact that most research on anything related to health, wellness, and fitness is done on men, so there's not good data. There's also a lot of really low-hanging fruit in the military in particular. I mean, things like helicopters are all designed for people who are at least 5'8", and uniforms don't fit and backpacks don't fit. And so what I hope, and my particular interest in this is, while I am of course interested in the military piece, what I'm hoping is that the policy change that comes out of this has a sort of broader population level impact on things like PE in school, childhood obesity, youth fitness. And I'm hoping that the policies that come out of this actually help boys and girls equally, of course, because this is a real serious problem. And so it was an honor to be able to speak there. I've never spoken on a congressional panel. I had to buy a suit, which I haven't worn back since my lawyer days. And then the second piece is Kelly and I have been supporting two presidents, not necessarily directly, but they have I would describe it as a human performance staff that work at the White House. So coaches and physical therapists and people who are, helping keep our presidents, high functioning and feeling good in their bodies. And we've been behind the scenes supporting a couple different presidents. And so we've had an open invitation for a while to come and visit the White House and meet the president. And so we were already in DC for this congressional panel. And of course, we took up the opportunity, and it was, we ended up getting a 4-hour private tour of the White House, sat in the Oval Office in the cabinet room. It was like a 4-hour history lesson in, American presidential history. It was fascinating. I highly recommend it. I'm sure you saw on Instagram, we had to really carefully post. I would say the Ready State net lost about 600 followers. But it could have been worse, I would say. Kelly and I really tried to emphasize that this was not our involvement with the White House, and all the work we do is deeply non-political. And, we're just there to, help people be healthy and happy. And then as an aside, one of my dreams in life is I want to try to be on the President's Physical Fitness Council one day in my life. So I was hoping that maybe that visit might do something for that. So it was a very cool experience on both fronts. And I'm hoping some really amazing policy changes come out that help, boys and girls in particular, and women, and, increases the amount of federal funding for research on women in particular. So it was a very cool experience. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, well done. Well done. And I believe I saw, I'm on Stacy Sims' email newsletter or of some sort, and she sent out a petition this morning too. So that's flying around, right?
Yes.
Is there a place where people can go find that easily?
I actually have it in my link tree on my Instagram if people want to go sign it. But it basically is just a petition encouraging Congress to spend more money on research that is women specific and relevant to women, which I think will help the military and women generally in all of health and medicine. So you can find it at my link tree.
Right on. Right on. The Starretts go to Capitol Hill. How exciting. All right. Well, let's get on to section number 2. And Alex, there's quite a bit of stuff going on. I mean, today, some reports came out especially over the last 3 days. It's been probably a lot of coffee and reading for you, my friend. Where would you like to start? I mean, we have Peloton, we have Lifetime, we had Planet come out this morning.
Let's start with Planet. I haven't done a deep dive on their third quarter yet, but they released this morning. And there's been drama there since September when the CEO was unexpectedly dismissed and with no explanation. He's the longtime CEO, been at the company forever. Started at the front desk, took it public 10 years ago. Ran it well for many years, and was dismissed in September. The stock dropped from the 60s to the 40s because the company didn't explain what was going on. And whenever a CEO gets dismissed unexpectedly, the street assumes the worst. Usually some sort of financial impropriety, but none of that has been the issue. Was pointed to by the board. They appointed an interim CEO. They're looking for a new CEO, and over the the month and a half since he's been gone, they haven't announced any new CEO. I don't know if either of you is looking for a job, but or a different job. But, I'm certainly not. But anyway, so they released their earnings today. The company is chugging along, doing well, and the stock has basically recovered to where it was in September. So the drama is, for the time being, over, and we'll see who they come up with as a new CEO. Planet Fitness has close to 19 million members. It's the highest valued company in the sector. It's clearly a leader, whether you go there or don't go there, as your club of choice. Obviously, they are very popular amongst a lot of people. 2,500, units, and they're adding about 150 to 160 this year. So they're doing fine, and it's good to have the drama over with.
Is there, Alex, would you say there's more drama in the fitness industry than there are in other industries when you look at publicly traded companies?
Well, if you're in the crypto industry, I would say
Right. There. Right. Right.
there's probably more drama there. If you're a WeWork, follower, no, there's drama everywhere, and it's just the nature of, I think, business. And there are a lot of ways to run businesses, and not everybody, runs them takes the high road, is ethical, is straight. And I don't think, no, absolutely not. The fitness industry is not any more dramatic, I don't think, than any other industry.
Good to hear. What's next then? I think Lifetime, you want to go to that?
Yeah, sure. So Lifetime released a few weeks ago, and I posted on this in LinkedIn, and I was surprised. Their numbers were really good, and yet the stock dropped 20% or so. It's down from the public offering price of 18, which happened 2 years ago. It's up today. It's trading around $13, a little over 13 today. But 2 years on the public market, and they're trading significantly below the IPO. So they're not getting any credit on the street for what they're doing. And I think there's a theme with Lifetime going back many, many years, because they were public before I think in the late 2000s they went public, and then they went private in 2015, and then they went public again in 2021. So they've been to this rodeo a couple of times, and they weren't getting credit, in 2015. So they said, let's go private. They went private for about $4 billion in enterprise value. Today, they're worth about the same. So, and they've added about 50 clubs in the interim, and how big their clubs are. So 50 clubs times many, many millions of dollars, and your valuation doesn't change. That's a problem. So I think they have to, and what I said in my post was they have to figure out a way to grow without spending $500-600 million a year, which is what they've been doing. So they're trying to figure that out. And I do give them credit. The member experience is amazing, but I do feel like the shareholder experience also needs to be good. And if you're not getting a return on your investment as a shareholder, they're not taking care of the shareholders. So, you got to take care of all your stakeholders. I'm not just saying the shareholders, but your employees. I think they do a great job. The members, they do a great job. And their communities, I think they take care of. But the shareholder experience is not A+.
I ask a question, Eric? I know that you're running this for Alex, but
yeah.
what I, again, because this is not my area of expertise, but thanks to this podcast, I've been doing a ton more reading on it. And actually, after the last podcast, I talked to my own financial advisor to ask his opinion on Planet Fitness. And what I've seen in some of your posts and read is that it seems like Wall Street doesn't really like these fitness businesses. And is that just because this is what I'm focused on? Is that true for across all industries? And then my second question is, why would any of these companies want to go public? I mean, after I hear this Lifetime story, obviously we've all watched F45 that has, gone dark, and that didn't go well. And there's so few of them anyway that are public that I wonder why would any company do that? Because it doesn't seem like when they do, they're getting credit like Planet Fitness should be in terms of how successful it is.
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when capital is cheap, equity capital is cheap, as it has been during the past 3-4 years, not now, but when interest rates were very low, the public markets were offering companies cheaper capital. And so if Lifetime, is considering how they're going to finance their growth, and they're looking at a public market that is offering equity at a relatively low price, they're going to go in that direction. There's other F45. I assume it's a combination of cheap capital plus liquidity. If the shareholders want liquidity, sometimes the public markets are the best way to go. The SPAC phenomenon was a factor. Beachbody, I think, I believe was the SPAC. It's Wall Street can be very seductive and offer a lot of options and wealth to the directors, to the shareholders, to the management. So it's a combination of things. But the fitness industry can do fine in the public market. It just, the companies need to be run in a way that enhances shareholder value. And I think Lifetime could do it. They just need to slow down growth, run the business for cash flow, accumulate more cash, and consider share buybacks, consider dividends, things that shareholders benefit from. The other thing with Lifetime that I did want to mention was they're doing a pilot program with Ozempic. I don't know if you saw this.
I did see that. I did. Yes.
It was very smart. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be, we know Noom is doing that. Noom completely restructured their business to have this medical side where they're prescribing Ozempic as well as trying to help people with lifestyle changes. And I saw that Lifetime was doing that. And I feel like that's going to become a really important part of, a lot of gyms and other fitness spaces. I mean, I don't know that anyone's just going to drop what they were doing, but I think they're going to have it as a component. I think it's smart.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree, because these, to do this successfully, it needs to be monitored, right? And what better place than somewhere like Lifetime? And one thing I wanted to bring up too, and maybe you've heard that. I'm not here to spread rumors, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've heard from a credible source that many small or numerous small gyms like CrossFit gyms are getting letters from Lifetime to buy them. To buy out their real estate. And I'm wondering if you guys have heard anything. I know, Juliet, you have a strong connection to the CrossFit community. Have you guys heard anything about this? I mean, it seems like an interesting consolidation play. I have some theories about it, but yeah, any rumors out there on that?
Oh man, I mean, I haven't actually directly heard that, but I find it very interesting. And to the extent that they've been trying to grow in their physical space, and to the extent that the few lifetimes that I've been in over the last few years, they've actually really tried, at least a couple of them have tried to move away from that Globo gym model where everything is in these rooms and try to really follow the CrossFit gym model to have these big open spaces and training facilities that, like, I was in a lifetime that looked a lot like a CrossFit on the inside. Yeah, for whatever it's worth, I can't say it's a bad idea. And if I still owned a CrossFit and they came knocking, it would certainly be something to think about.
Be
right?
intriguing.
Yeah. I think the complexity, of course, comes. I mean, I guess if you just become a lifetime, then you can. Yeah, I would be intrigued for sure. I haven't heard that, but I'm going to try to get more. I'm going to try to get more insider information now that I know this.
Well, in the next one, in 3 months from now, we'll have some updates on that reporting. Let's get on to the belle of the ball, Peloton, right? That seems to dominate a lot of industry headlines. What are some of your takeaways from their reporting, Alex? And we'll kind of get into that'll dovetail into what we think Peloton means. Success, failures for the industry overall. So let's start with the reports.
Yeah. So let me actually zoom out a little bit and talk about a little bit of the history of Peloton as a public company. So they, in 2019, 4 years ago, pre-COVID, they go public. And there's really 3 different eras for Peloton as a public company: pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID. I hesitate to call it post-COVID, but hopefully we're somewhat past COVID. So pre-COVID, they go public. It's a company that's growing really quickly. I'm sure you remember what it was like back then. They had about 500,000 subscribers when they went public, and the IPO was pretty successful. Not crazy successful, but pretty successful. And now, fast forward 4 years later, they're at about 3 million subscribers. So they've 6x'd their subscriber base in 4 years. So and it's about a 50% a year growth. Of course, it's not linear, right? It grows significantly during in COVID, and then flatlines. But so big picture, over the last 4 years, they've done incredibly well as in terms of growth. So I think people forget that. They remember the COVID years. They forget where they started as a public company. And of course, people are short term in terms of how they think about public companies, and they made a lot of mistakes along the way. So anyway, so that's sort of the good news is they've grown a lot since they went public. The bad news is they went public at $29. They're now at $5. So as a public company, they have not performed, at least not if you look at their price today. The COVID Peloton is a rocket ship. They have more demand than they can meet. They don't have to spend $1 on marketing because everybody's just, trying to order a Peloton, and they don't need to advertise, which makes the company incredibly profitable during COVID. And then you get to a stock price of $170. You get quarters where they're making $100 million of EBITDA, so incredibly profitable. And then you get the post-COVID Peloton, which is where we're at today. And basically, it's a business that is flat. It's a flat business. It doesn't make money. the kudos to the management, the new CEO who came in, a couple years ago, inherited a mess of a company that had made all sorts of strategic decisions based on COVID revenue, and projecting that basically everybody was going to work out at home, nobody was going to go to the gym anymore, and it was going to be like the movie the movie business where everything went to the home and came out of the theaters. So kudos to them for that. But now there's, the post-COVID Peloton is trying to reinvent itself. Like, what's our path from here? What's our growth trajectory? What's our strategy overall? Are we more than a bike company? They certainly, they want to be. Are we a hardware company, or are we a content company? They want to be a content and a software company. They want to be available to people everywhere, not just in your home. And they want to grow, obviously. Is that the right strategy for them? I would say the jury is out. I mean, they are trying so many things, so many irons in the fire. It's just it's hard to keep track of all the initiatives. And when I see that in a company, even the size of Peloton, I just think, okay, they don't really have a game plan. It's kind of like, we're going to just throw a lot of darts. We're going to take a lot of swings. And, think back, I looked back a year ago, what they were focused on was their relationship with Amazon and their relationship with Dick's Sporting Goods. And, we're going to sell like crazy through third parties. The CEO didn't even mention that this quarter.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
Now the growth is supposed to be around the treadmill, $6,000 treadmill. Like, really? How many people are going to buy that? I mean,
it's also really big. And I don't think you have to have like a 2-story garage to fit it in your garage as well. That's just one of many challenges.
Yeah, no, it's a treadmill for people with big home gyms who have a lot of space and a lot of money. It's not, in my view, it's not going to move the needle. I'm sure it's a great treadmill, but I don't think it's going to move the needle. They have a rental program that they're talking up, where you can rent it on a month-by-month basis, and they have, I think, 50,000 of those in the home, in the homes. But that's tiny. Is that really going to move the needle? I mean, it could, I guess. They're talking about international. They're talking about the NBA and WNBA partnership, and partnerships with Lululemon, which actually, is one that I think is pretty good. They say they'll make $10 million off that in the second quarter. So that's a real number. That's the only partnership where they attached a real number to what was going on. So anyway, I think it's a there's an identity crisis. They got to figure out if they're a growth company, or if they're they're a company that has the cash cow, the bike with the subscriptions, and just forget about the rower and the treadmill and the guide, and just focus on the bike, focus on that plus the app, and try to just, again, give the shareholders a good experience rather than just the members.
Well, you look at the connected fitness market overall, right? And I think, there's a couple of things that Peloton definitely has going for them. Number one is their brand. Like, it's such a strong brand. I mean, they are the Kleenex of facial tissues, the chapstick of lip balm, right? Like, they just got out early. People recognize it. Like, when they think about home connected fitness, they think about Peloton, right? That's what everyone talks about. Like, during the pandemic, it's like, well, everyone's buying a Peloton. There was other competitors, right? There's the Tonals, there's the Mirrors, there's all these other ones, but everyone really stuck to the brand of Peloton. So that's very strong. I don't know how to monetize a really strong brand, yeah, I don't know. There's probably a million people who could, but that seems to be one thing. I mean, when you guys look at Peloton and then the connected fitness category overall, what do your senses tell you? Like, where do you think it's heading? Is it going to be, a permanent fixture in people's homes moving forward? Is it going to grow again in market share? Like, what do you guys think?
Well, I'll just add a couple things to what Alex said, and thank you for the dartboard analogy, because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think of myself as much more of a layperson reading these reports, Alex, that you send. So I'm always really curious to see what your expert opinion is. But when I read through this, I thought the exact same thing. I literally just felt like they were just, shots fired and seeing what was going to land. And I had the exact same thought. I was like, what about this Dick's Sporting Good thing we read about in, the June report or whenever we last read the reports. So I thought that was really interesting. And I'm glad that that's how you described it, because that was my exact same feeling. And, I feel really mixed about connected fitness. I mean, I think maybe one of the biggest lessons that we all learned from COVID is that human beings need to be around other human beings. And I think that is going to continue to cut the legs out of this connected fitness market. I still think there's probably, like the workplace, always going to be some kind of hybrid model for most people. And it's going to depend on the seasons of people's lives. I think for people who have small children, having some kind of connected fitness device in a home gym might be critical and the only way they can exercise. And then I think when, you don't have to be at home and can actually, commune and exercise around other people. I mean, I was recently just in a Bay Club in my area. A friend of mine is a member of a Bay Club. And man, that place, nobody's really exercising in there. That's what I saw. I was like, nobody's exercising here. This is a social club. The exercise is a sideshow. And so, I don't know. I feel like at best, these connected fitness companies are going to hold a small sort of sliver of the market in our lives. And probably still are only going to be used mostly by people who have space and extra money to burn. Because for average people, if they have to choose now between going, being a gym member or owning a Peloton, my guess is more people are going to choose to be a gym member because they want to be around other humans. I don't know.
Just
What do
the
you think?
diversity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting thing in what you mentioned too, Alex, about the cash cow. Like, attention creep is a big deal. We kind of saw this with F45. They just started, their attention started creeping into other areas that just got their energy and time away from like whatever their primary cash cow is. And so, there's a lot of distraction there, it seems. But one of the things I do like is when I was looking at their B2B wellness, right? So like when you start talking about hospitality, and when you start talking about corporate wellness, when you start, injecting your cash cow into different markets or sub niches of the market, I think that's a really strong play. And I could see that being very valuable, because when people do travel, they're like, ooh, a Peloton. Like, I've done it. I'm going to a hotel or something, like, ooh, a Peloton. Right. And I get so excited. I get to use the Peloton. It's just that brand strength that you can move forward. So, I mean, those seem to be like really strong initiatives, but I'm interested to get your guys' opinions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the option to exercise at home is going to be with us, and it's going to be compelling to a lot of people. It's a hybrid, it's an and situation. So I think having the option at home, whether it's a bike or a mirror or a treadmill or on your iPad, having that option is really helpful to people. I think it's super convenient. You don't always have the time to get to the gym, and that is a couple hours for most people. And that, if you're time pressed, I think the home option is great, and I don't see that going away. I really think. So I think Peloton is a stable business. Is it a growth business? Can they extend? We were talking about University of Michigan before, and now they have a partnership with the University of Michigan. They have a partnership with Liverpool Football Club. They have, all these brand extensions that they're trying to do that are probably relatively cheap, but are they really moving the needle so that Peloton at one point wanted to have 100 million members? I mean, they thought that was their TAM. They're at 3 and plus some app members, and so are they going to 10? Are they going to 6? I don't know, but I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything that suggests that they have a new major growth initiative that's really going to double the size of the business.
The other thing I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, Alex, that I thought was genius about Peloton from the moment I saw it was the combination of the bike plus the programming. And I always think about this when I go into a hotel gym, or even sometimes like a Globo gym, like a Lifetime or a Bay Club, is that people have no idea what to do. When you go into a hotel gym, you see people just, they get on the elliptical for 5 or 10 minutes and maybe they do a few little lifting moves. And so I think what people really need and crave often is programming. And I think that's what Peloton really brought to people, is this combination of a simple thing you could put in your home gym or your house in the corner of your living room, combined with fun programming, which is what people really need, and probably why you're excited when you see one in a hotel gym, because it's not about the bike. It's about, okay, you can get in there and you don't have to think about what you're going to do, and you're going to sweat hard and get some work done and go about your day. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that lasts, and I do think, I know a lot of people, even CrossFit people, who have the Peloton app because they travel a lot and they want to be able to have access to the programming wherever they go. So I agree. I mean, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think they do need to figure out who they are and what they're doing. But I also think, they've done a lot of really awesome things for, generally for people's health and wellness and fitness and access to programming. And, again, I'm a cheerleader. I want them to do well.
Yeah, me too.
The last thing I wanted to point out, well, two things. One, they spent $75 million last quarter on research and development. And that is great for the industry if they're spending it wisely, which I have no idea. But I am concerned that, they've spent a lot of money on the treadmill, on the guide, on the rower, and I don't think those are returning much to them at all, to shareholders, to the company. So it's a big number, and it overall, if it's spent well, I think it's great, but I question whether it is. And the other thing that I noticed that is, maybe too inside baseball, but they have commitments, contractual commitments on things that are mind-boggling in the size. Like they have to spend $100 million over the next year on music, right? Music rights, $100 million. Like, that is staggering.
Yeah.
I agree. The music is really an important part of the experience, but that just seems crazy to me in the business model. They have over $100 million.
That is a lot of money.
That is, and maybe there's an ROI on that, but it feels like they still have some expenses like the R&D, the music expense. They built a 300,000 square foot office in New York City that they're paying $30 million a year on. They don't that's
Wow.
crazy.
Ooh.
Anyway, enough
Yeah.
on.
Well,
Yeah.
there was one other thing about my reading of Peloton that piqued my interest I want to mention, and I know we need to move on. But I also saw that they reported that they weren't very successful in engaging and retaining their free members. And I was particularly interested in that only because, as someone who is, offering an app and having free trials, I've always had a very mixed feeling about free anything. And I have a free trial on my own product because I feel like it's industry standard and I have to, but I honestly kind of hate free trials. I mean, I'm a abuser of free trials in my own use. And, anyway, I thought it was interesting to see that, at some point people, we need to move beyond this. Let's give everything away for free model. It's, we've trained all of our customers to expect to get everything for free. And I don't think it's done any company any favor. And most of the time we're talking about relatively low price things. I mean, under $20. And my feeling is, man, if people just paid their $20 and then bailed, at least the company would have gotten $20. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but I didn't realize they had this whole freemium model, and I'm not surprised to see that people weren't then converting.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, and you're right. It is seems like an industry standard or any kind of subscription model. They always want to get you in and then you got to give your credit card. But it's, I've seen a lot of apps launch and everybody just feels compelled to give it away for free. I've actually haven't seen any that I can recent memory where people are like, no, we just charge them. We just charge it. You're going to pay. And then, that's up to you. And I think, there's one key point that I want to make on this because it came up in conversation this week about just connected fitness overall, and then we can move on. But there's an asset that these companies are sitting on that not a lot of people are talking about, and that's the unique data sets, right? This is data that really hasn't been available. And I know there's a company that we've mentioned here. I can't say who they are yet, but they're going to launch a report soon that is open source, right? Some of the most detailed reports on strength training of all ages, of all categories, right? And that's going to be open to the industry. So I think that's really freaking cool. And I'm not a data scientist. I don't know how to turn data into money, but there's a lot of people way above my pay grade who are. So I think that's something that people haven't really thought about, at least within our industry yet. But there's a lot of very smart people working on the problem. That being said, longevity. Let's get into it. I've been looking for this for a while. So it's a big word right now in the industry, right? Longevity. We've got, I know, Juliet, you and Kelly have done some research into blue zones. Very interesting stuff. We all took a really, really good look at Peter Attia. Is it Attia's or Attia?
I think it's Attia.
I think it's Attia. Peter Attia. Peter, if you're listening, probably not. But sorry if I butcher your name. Outlive, right? That book. I mean, have you guys talked to anybody who's talked about it recently? I mean, it seems to be quite a hot topic. So, let's start with, I guess, let's just start with Outlive. Let's start with the book, right? So your guys' overall impressions, and then we can kind of dive into other categories of longevity. And Julia, let's start with you. What's your overall impression?
Well, I mean, I'll start with saying that I think it's an extremely important book and well-timed. And, I actually, as I read it, this wasn't what I went into it thinking. What I hoped is that other doctors actually read this book. From a sort of practical health advice standpoint, I think there's some really interesting, innovative things. And I think there's also a lot of things that other people have been saying. He's sort of repeating, I think, what a lot of us have been saying in the industry for a long time is it's really about these basic things. It's sleep, nutrition, exercise, connection. He's not the first person to say any of those things and together. But what I do hope is that the medical community starts to pick up these lessons and that, this idea of medicine 3.0 does come to pass. I mean, this is a bit off topic, but we just had Dr. Andy Galpin on our podcast, and he introduced me to this idea of the digital twin. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with digital twins that have been, commonly used in industry. But it's sort of one big part of this medicine 3.0 personalized medicine where, they make a digital twin of you and they run 1,000 tests on it. And then they say, okay, Eric, these are the 3 supplements you should take that work for you. And, if you get cancer, this is the exact treatment that's going to work for you. I mean, Andy says this isn't 30 years off. This is 5 years off. So I think to the extent that, his book gets in the hands of physicians in particular, and maybe actually starts to move the needle on this sort of sick care system where we're in, that is a gigantic win for me. On the negative side, I thought it was very difficult to read. And like you, Eric, I found it slightly anxiety inducing. And I fear that everybody's buying this book, but nobody's actually reading it. And it's been interesting for me to talk to my friends who are saying, "Oh, hey, I read Outlive," and then from it, the sole piece of advice they've taken is, "Well, maybe I need to add some strength and conditioning into my life." And I think, man, okay, you must not have actually read the book, because there was a lot going on in there. And certainly he's a gigantic proponent of exercise. I know he puts it as at the top of his list. But man, for, these sort of lay people in my community reading this book, of the only takeaway they have is that they should lift weights. I'm not convinced they actually read the book. And then I just, we've all talked about this before. I mean, to actually do Peter's program, it's not just for the 1%ers, it's for the private jet set. I mean, to be able to do VO2 max testing and get annual MRIs and 4 colonoscopies a year and extremely in-depth extended blood panels and be able to track a lot of these metrics. I mean, there are not very many people who can actually follow his program just from a purely financial standpoint. So I would say my critique is that, it's just not that accessible, but I also don't know that that was his goal. And again, I go back to this hope that my hope is that it really does influence the medical community in a meaningful way, because then I think to the extent the medical community is able to sort of distill those lessons and start to apply them in their practice, then it would have this sort of population level impact. But I think it's very important. And I think, he's got people's attention, and anytime we can get, a lot of people's attention on these topics that we all care so deeply about, and if it helps move the needle on health in this country, man, like huge round of applause to him for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with so much of that, Julia. And Alex, what were your major takeaways on the book?
I think Juliet's hit pretty much I have the same reaction. If your doctor, your primary care physician, whatever doctors you're working with, buys into Medicine 3.0, then I think the book has a lot of relevance. If they're in a different world, a different model they're operating on, they have 10 minutes to give you to give you a prescription, to give you their diagnosis, to give you their feedback, then I don't think much of what's in Outlive is gonna get to the patient. I think there's personal responsibility, and how much personal responsibility are people going to take for their overall health. We have a obesity and overweight population that's about 70%. So, there's a big question in my mind about, who's going to take personal responsibility. Is it the 20% who are going to gyms and going to studios and buying Pelotons? Is he basically preaching to the choir? It's just the same people who are going to get healthier because they're paying attention to what he's writing. That's my concern. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I give him huge credit for mainstreaming longevity science. I mean, I have people who ask me, do I listen to the Peter Attia podcast? Did I read his book? Did I see his comment on this or that? Who've never asked me anything about fitness or longevity before. So he's definitely the godfather of and the thought leader in the space. And I know he's trying to, he's got his clinical practice that costs probably $250,000 a year, but he's trying to democratize, to use a buzzword, through the book, through he's got this program, I think it's called Early, or that he's offered to podcast subscribers, that gives you more of a curriculum than is in Outlive. But it is price. It's still pricey. It's still thousands of dollars a year. And so I think he's definitely onto something, and improving the focus on health of a lot of people. So kudos for that.
Yeah, I think we all agree on most of that stuff too, Alex. And it's when I look at, as I was churning my way through this book, right? It was not an easy read. I was really forcing myself to get through this thing. It reminded me of college. But the same kind of questions. I think overall, like, this is good for the fitness industry, right? Especially when he puts the importance of exercise up there, like this. And to get, like, when you look at the trend of like most consumers being hungry for information about health, right? The Hubermans and the Ready State, and all these places where people can go and educate themselves. That's a really good trend. And I think an educated consumer is a good consumer. And some of the podcasts I listened to that did reviews of it were practitioners, in the medical field, and they were thrilled. Like, they were just so excited their patients are coming in and talking about this book. It helps them with the work they're doing, right, from that angle. So hopefully, to your point, Julia, as like this starts to disseminate a little bit more. And I really like too just how he put a common language behind it, like the Web 3.0 and the Four Horsemen, and some of the other things, the Centurion Decathlon. I thought that was really cool, right? Like, that specifically was really cool to me, because you're putting purpose behind the work. It's like, okay, I actually have a goal. I'm not just exercise and be healthier, but I want to be 100. I want to be able to ski and pick up grandkids and all of those things. So I thought that was a really nice, you can tell he put some thought into it. One of the things I was kind of bummed about is he didn't get into the supplementation and pharmacology about it. Like, I'm sure you go to a clinic like that, or Dr. Florence Comite, or one of these other people who are, 6 figures plus every year to go into these. Like, I'm sure there's a little bit of peptides, there's a little bit of HRT, right? You're getting some other things that maybe just aren't, fruits and vegetables. So that was one of the things too. And I started jotting down, like, if I was going to follow the plan, right? It was like, okay, 4 hours of zone 2 per week, 3 to 4 sessions of strength training, plus like DNS and like all these things. I'm like, when do you actually have time to do the things that you want to do? So it's comprehensive. It's an amazing piece of work. I think we're going to be talking about it for years. So overall, I think we all agree, like, great job. Could be more accessible, but hopefully it's a starting point and we can all get there.
Yeah. And I think that whoever, I can't remember which one of you made that, but just making all of this a common language, and, and just, I do think democratizing it in a way that people are talking about it. And, I agree with you, Alex. There's been more people who've approached me about some topics that they've never discussed with me ever, even though they know that I'm in the space, sleep, weightlifting, just some of the high level topics. And so, to the extent that he is reaching those people and they are rethinking some of their ideas about what it means to be healthy and fit, and actually really considering their longevity, is extremely important.
Here's a question I have for you guys, which I think is, really actionable for industry. But do you think longevity is something that our industry can harness and, make an impact, make some money, and kind of extend their reach into, the rest of the 80% of the people who are engaged in fitness and health routines? Like, how do you think this can be harnessed by our industry in particular as a movement?
I mean, from a business perspective, I think in the short term, it's going to have to continue to be this very high end concierge level stuff. But I think that happens in many industries, right? When we're innovating and doing new things, I think it often starts with it's very expensive and inaccessible to a lot of people. And then hopefully over time, changes and becomes more and more accessible, like getting a yearly MRI or access to all these supplements or blood panels. I mean, hopefully it becomes ubiquitous enough that it becomes accessible to most people. I mean, that's my hope. But I do think in the short term, I see in my own area more and more concierge medicine practices popping up, more access to scans and blood panels. And, I mean, Kelly and I have, we were like some of the early people in CrossFit to have have these early blood panels where you'd go get an extra blood panel and meet with a physician online in like 2009. Right. And
Awesome.
back then it was very out there, getting our DNA, our full DNA checked. And so I do feel like there is a business model there that people are starting to capitalize on. As I mentioned earlier, this whole idea of the digital twin is really new. The health digital twin, I think you guys should read more about it. It's really interesting. And apparently some companies are already starting to try to figure out how to monetize this and make this a thing. Super interesting to me. And I still am at my very early phases of even understanding it and understanding how people are running businesses around it. So I think there's a huge business opportunity in this longevity space. And I do think, people like Peter Attia have really set the stage for there to be a ton of business opportunity. But again, I think in the short term, it's going to be this very, have versus have not kind of set.
Yeah. And there's something about too, how we're starting to shift the conversation. Oh, sorry. I'm just shifting the conversation from fat loss, right, to longevity. That's huge for our industry because fat loss is a 6-week challenge, right? People come in and out, right? In a year, maybe they hit their goal and maybe they don't. If they don't, they get frustrated. So this is shifting to something a little bit more concrete that we can really build on long-term with clients. So I think to me, that's a pretty exciting thing. I would be shifting, guys, if I was still a gym owner or practitioner, I'd be shifting all my conversation to this stuff, right? Having that, Centurion decathlon type conversation up front and setting the table for a long time partnership with my clients that I think, is what longevity necessitates, right? Sorry, Alex, I cut you off. What were you thinking?
Yeah. No, I agree completely with that. It's, what is the motivation that people need to stick with a program, an exercise program? And if you tie it to longevity, I totally agree with what you just said. It's a lifetime practice. It's a lifelong practice, and I'm starting to see more startups talking about programs, boutiques, studios that that focus on promoting longevity related programs. Are they? Is that marketing? Is that just a buzzword? Trying to leverage it? There's some of that, but I think it's also that customers, clients, they understand that longevity is and health span is somewhat controllable. I think that's starting to get into the mainstream mindset. It's not all genetics, right? People used to say, "Oh, what's the point of exercising?" The most important decision is, how you pick your parents, right? But I think that mindset is changing. So to me, it's a tide that's rising, that's going to lift a lot of boats in fitness. And I also think, on the flip side, there's going to be some BS and some smoke and mirrors and some, businesses that talk about longevity in a way that is totally unrelated to what, Peter Attia is talking about. And it will probably be successful because people, want quick results and instant gratification, and they don't want to be, working for years to, to get that marginal gain at the end of their life. They want, the fountain of youth, not to put in the time. So I think there's both sides.
You know what I was going to say? What I was going to add to that, Alex, is I think I've heard this phrase, which I think is exactly what you're talking about. I think for most of our lives, people have subscribed or been told to subscribe to this long, slow rot theory of aging. You know, just this idea that it doesn't really matter. You're on this downward trend. And I do think this, you know, Attia's book and a lot of other books and, you know, Huberman, and I mean, there's a lot of voices out there that I think really are changing the sort of perception and dialogue around this. And I think maybe that is the most important thing of all, right? Is exactly what you said, is that people are realizing that there are a lot of levers that they can push to feel better now and to make sure they age well and maybe stave off some disease, or at least be able to survive any disease they do get. And I think that, you know, I think you may have just summarized what is the most important part about all of this work is just that change in sort of collective mindset on what's possible.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, you guys. This was, believe it or not, it's been recording for over an hour. It's so easy with you guys. Yeah, it's awesome. Any updates in your guys' lives or anything that you want to tell the audience about, and anything new at the Ready stage, Juliet?
Geez, I mean, we're just, you know, moving into the holidays and chugging along here. So yeah, nothing really interesting or exciting. Just doing the basics.
Awesome. Yeah, the fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
Alex, you still enjoying retirement, I presume?
Yeah.
Can you call it retirement?
I don't consider myself retired, Eric. I'm, although some might, but yeah, I'm selective in terms of how I apply my time, and I'm working on some new skills. I decided to become a mountain biker over the past 6 months.
Yes.
I was a road biker and am a road biker, but so yeah, I'm learning on the mellower trails of Jackson how to ride a mountain bike, and it's been great.
I can't wait to bike with you, Alex. I'm a late mountain biker. I'm a late learner as well.
Adult onset mountain biking?
Yes.
What we call it? Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
well, you guys, it's so much fun doing this with you guys.
I've learned not to go out with people who are excellent mountain bikers, because I push myself to the point where it's a little too risky at my age. But no, I would love that. I would love that, Julia.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for doing this. It's a lot of fun. You know, like I said, well received from the audience last time, and I think it's something that's it's just really needed in the industry to kind of talk about these things and take a prolonged conversation, not just a one click article. So that being said, Juliet, Alex, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Juliet.